How's it going, everybody? Today what we're going to be talking about is what I promised you on my last video. It's hooking up the Dust Right 1.5 horsepower dust collector. There's two models of this. I wanted to go with the higher end model. This is the 1250 CFM. There's a 650 CFM on the market as well. I'm not quite sure how that would work with my shop. I have heard good reviews about both, but I've heard tremendous reviews about this one. So I wanted to go with the higher power one. That way I'm just not cutting myself short. Today, we have our handy helper, if you remember him from before, Gabriel right here.
Hi.
So he's here ready to help us out, and let's get this video started to see if it's going to work for your shop as well. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and start unboxing all of this. Let's see what we have in the package. Like I said, I've never worked with this before. This is going to be my first time working with this specific dust collector itself, and it's a wall mount, so it's going to go up on this wall over here. Well, let's see what's in the package. Ready? Alright, keep in mind, this box is pretty heavy. I'm not saying that one person can't hold it by themselves, but it's recommended for at least 2 people to carry this box down. So just as I promised in the last video itself, I did order the Oneida Dust Deputy, the 4-inch, so the Super Dust Deputy. There was an issue with Amazon. I had ordered it as it showed that it was in stock. The next day they sent me a letter saying that it was out of stock and they didn't know when it was coming back in. So I knew I had to get this video done for you guys, so I went ahead and went to a different website and I ordered it from there. So that thing is coming in the mail in the next couple days. We're going to get this thing set up as if we didn't have a Dust Deputy initially, and during the week we're going to go ahead and hook up the Dust Deputy to see how it actually functions with that, if it runs the same, if it runs better. So we're going to go ahead and see what's actually in the box itself and see how they package this. Alright, you want to go throw this over there?
Yeah.
Alright, you got it? What's your size, okay? Alright. Alright, this thing is a beast. Come on over here, just throw it right there on the floor. Alright, come on over this way. Look how big this thing is. Yeah, we're going to have to take all this stuff out and set it out nicely right now. This thing is huge. We want to put it right over that way. It looks a lot better in person than it does on the screen, I can tell you that. Okay, move this to the side. Let's see what's in this little box real fast before we start taking that out.
Open this little box.
Open this little box. Alright. So it looks like you have your Y connector. It has a cutoff right there in case you want to use one hose or 2 hoses. Did you want to open that one up? Alright, go ahead. Can you open it up? Looks like this is the vibration pad, I'm assuming. And we have all our mounting hardware in here, plus a remote. So that's a good thing with this system. I'm not sure I'm going to set it up like my last system where I had a 3-way switch system. That's why I kind of have everything portable in this shop now. I want to make sure that I can move everything around, and so I'm not sure if I'm going to go ahead and connect that 3-way switch system again. So my recommendation in this right here, because it's so big and heavy, we're going to go ahead and cut the box open, and that way you're not lifting with your back out of this awkward position. So cut the box, the seams, the corners, and the whole box should open up. More. Oh, this one has staples on it. Alright. Easiest way to open it up. Rip it. Get it! Get it! Okay, watch your hands, because there's staples right here. Alright. Alright, there we go. We opened it up. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and get this thing mounted up here. We're going to see how far this actually expands right here, so you know whether or not you're going to be hitting 60-inch on centers or not. Alright, so go ahead and bring me that tape measure right there so we can see how far this actually expands on the back side. So we're at 18 inches on the back brace itself. 18 inches. And it goes up right around 14.5. So we have 18 inches by 14.5 inches. And the actual bolts themselves, where the lag bolts look like they're going to go in, is right on 16 inch on center. So It looks like they designed this so that you could fit it right on your studs without having to actually put some sort of backboard on the back. This is where my dust collector is going to hang. So if you have any sort of drywall on your shop and that's installed, you're going to want to use a stud finder to find those studs behind that wall. For me, as I did with the last shop, I went ahead and installed some OSB boards for my walls themselves. And when I installed these, I have screw lines and lines from pencil marks from when I was actually installing them. So I have an idea of where my studs are at. The easiest way to install this, and we know that they're 16" on centers, is we have to just go ahead and mark where one stud is at, where you want to actually install this, where one stud is at, use a level, strike a line to your next stud, that way you know that it's perfectly level. After that, we're going to go ahead and put some pilot holes into the OSB board, and you're going to drive some lag bolts into that, and that's where you're going to go ahead and hang up your dust collector. So it shouldn't really take too long. It seems like it's a pretty easy process. Just make sure that you have a level with you when you're doing this, because if you're just guessing where it's at, you're going to come out crooked, I guarantee you. Alright, we're heading up to the area that I want to go ahead and mount the dust collector. I know I wanted it about this area itself, this high. I already installed an outlet over here specifically for the dust collector itself, running off its own circuit. Alright, you ready to hand that to me? Okay, was that heavy or what?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Alright.
Kind of.
And we're going to level this up so the bubble's right in the middle. And we're going to strike a line from here to your next stud. Okay, after you strike your first line there or make your first two marks, keep in mind on the back side of this dust collector there are two more slots on the bottom for lag bolts. That way they're not just hanging off the top, it's not just hanging off the top section, it's actually hanging off the bottom section as well. So that way you secure it nicely to the wall. So from the top of the bolt on the actual framing itself to the top of the bolt on the bottom one, it is exactly 1 foot down. So we need to make a line from that point in the corner. We need to go down 1 foot on both sides so that we can drill our pilot holes on 4 spots, drive our lag bolts in there, and this thing should be secured after we put the padding on. Alright, for the bit that you're going to use, make sure it's somewhat similar to the size of the lag bolt. The one that I grabbed was, it was a 1/4 inch. It was a 1/4 inch quarter inch bit, and it's going to fit right in here. You just don't want it to go over the size of your lag bolt. You just want to get it as close to it as possible. Preferably not even the same size, just a little bit smaller, because if it's too big, this thing's going to go right in and out of that OSB board, or even the stud itself. And you want to make sure that your bit is a hair smaller than your lag bolt itself. You ready? Lean yourself against the ladder a little bit so that you're not leaning back, okay? You don't have to go too far, but just lean yourself forward, okay?
Okay.
All right? Go ahead and hold it straight up to that. Can you see it? Find the trigger?
I got it.
Go ahead. All right, pull it up. You gotta hold the trigger. All right. Can you reach the top one? Or no, you want to do those ones?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll do those ones.
Yeah.
All right. One. Let's get that other one. Let's do the. All right, so if you have the ability to do so, go ahead and purchase yourself one of these adapters here for wrenches. For the socket wrench itself, these sockets actually fit perfectly with this. I would recommend an impact driver when you're driving in the lag bolts themselves. This one specifically is a 7/16. I believe the 12 millimeters will work on the bolts as well if you're doing millimeters. But this is definitely going to work for this, to drive this in. And if you're getting some issues going towards the end of your lag bolt and say that it's just not enough power given it to make it spin in there, just get yourself your wrench for the socket set and start using that, and I guarantee this is going to go in. Come on up. All right, you're going to get this one in here. I'm going to get it started for you, okay? And you just pull the trigger like this. That one's easier, okay? Little at a time. There you go, there you go, there you go, there you go, there you go. Keep going, a little bit more, a little more, a little bit more. One more, right there. Okay, that's good for now. I'll get the other two up there, okay? Okay, I'm gonna drive these ones down. All right. Back it out a little. All right, before we install the dust collector onto the wall itself, you want to make sure that you install these vibration pads at the exact same size as the backing of the dust collector that hangs up on the wall. Keep in mind, there are no instructions in this box whatsoever. It's not that complicated to figure out yourself, but just always be prepared to use these ones. If you install this dust collector without the vibration pads, you're gonna have to take it off and put it back on again after you install the vibration pads. So keep in mind that after the lag bolts get installed, this goes on next. All right, buddy, you ready? All right, that fits good there. Let me see the next one, please. Ready? Okay, thank you. Oh, we're up here on top. All right, so as you can see now, we have the pads up. Again, these are 16-inch on centers. This one has a little bit of slop in it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to tighten out as soon as we put it on. So now we're going to go ahead and hang up this dust collector. Keep in mind, this thing's pretty heavy, so if you need another person, make sure you utilize somebody else. Missed the screw on that one. All right.
You need help there?
No, I think we got it. There we go. Now we're in. We're in on that side. We're in on the bottom. That one needs to be backed up. Can you hand me that drill, buddy, right there? Thank you. That one's in. That one's in. We can go ahead and drive these in. So that's nice and tight on all sides. All right, that thing's going nowhere. All right, guys, so after we install the actual dust collector, as you can see, it's going nowhere. This thing is in there. It's hooked to the studs. There's no reason why this thing should come down. We're gonna go ahead and install the bag itself, and it seems like a pretty easy process. Okay, so I did find the instructions for the dust collector itself. They were within the plastic bag that contained the dust bag itself. So if you're looking for the instructions themselves, they are within this box. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna do here is you're gonna do the vibration pad for the bag itself. After you have that placed on there, we're going to go ahead and install the bag with the bracket. So you want to make sure that you have your opening so you can see the dust that's getting filled up in the bag. You want to make sure it's towards you. Actually looks pretty easy to put on and take off. Make sure all sides are wrapped around the port. Now we're going to go ahead and drill this in. Pretty easy enough. That should just hang like that. You don't want to over tighten this and break it, so just enough to get it snug. All right, then there's a little Phillips head screw that you need to remove. You can use a screwdriver or a drill, doesn't matter. It's a very small screw and it's just enough to hold your Y connector up. It does feel somewhat loose, but I'm guessing that's all it takes to hold it on. It does have a little wrap to it. Let's see if I take this off, if there's anything I'm missing. Well, that would be it. Feels a little loose to me, but I guess that's the way it's supposed to be. All right, so as you can see here, the port that actually accepts all the dust has a cap on one of them for the Y connector and one that's open. So if you're just planning on running one line like I'm gonna do right now, you're just gonna use the one that's open and you're gonna cap this other one off. In the future, I may end up running a permanent line from this area to some tools that are to remain in certain spots, and just leave this one open for the hose. So I know that after this gets installed and the dust deputy shows up, the hose is going to connect from here to the dust deputy, and from the dust deputy for the extension hose to all the tools. Okay, so the Dust Right system has various sizes of hoses. Basically, well, they're all 4-inch in regards to the dust collector that we've purchased today. However, they come in different lengths, and this one shows that it stretches from 3 feet to 21 feet. There are smaller sizes for lengths and longer ones too. So for the time being, I purchased the 21 foot. This shop is 32 feet long. I believe 21 feet should be sufficient for the runs that I'm going to need for the tool hookups. So as you can see here, this thing is coming in and out. So it's tough to play with initially, but you want to make sure you get some sort of hose clamps. And I picked up these hose clamps from Amazon. It's a 5-pack, and they're turnkey adjustable hose clamps. These ones have the thumb screw on there. It doesn't matter which ones you purchase. You can get the ones that have the Phillips or flathead on there. But these ones just seem to be a little bit easier, especially if you're removing them quite a bit. This one's going to stay permanent. It should stay permanent, but if you decide on removing and reinstalling quite a bit for some certain hoses, these ones come in a little bit easier to play than it does with a screwdriver or a drill. So once we get this thing up here, we want to get it over this port, and then we're going to go ahead and secure it with the hose clamp. So we're going to bring this hose clamp back up, find a spot that's not going to ruin the hose itself, between right in the indentation area. And again, this thing just turns easily. Just turn it enough so that it's snug. You don't have to overdo it, and that thing is going nowhere. As you can see here, the hose clamp fit perfectly over the hose and over the port. Okay, so the next step that we're going to take is installing the quick change multi-port tool set. This is purchased separately from the dust collector itself. So everything that comes with the dust collector originally is going to be the dust collector, the Y connector, and the bag, and everything that was installed with the dust collector itself. This was purchased separately as well. So keep in mind, you have different lengths that you need to purchase depending on the size that's going to be suitable for your shop. This is, again, purchased separately, so we're going to have to install this right now so that we can use this hose to hook up to different tools. Okay, so as we open the box here, we have our connector. This is what's going to be hooked up to all the tools. And we have our adapters, some 4-inch, and I believe there's a 2.5-inch to 4-inch right here. There's some tools that require 2.5-inch, such as your router table or your miter saw, your bandsaw. I'm not sure if every bandsaw has a 2.5-inch port, but mine does. There may be some that have 4-inch ports, so just keep in mind of what tools you have, what size ports you have, and you're going to know what size adapters you'll need. My joiner and my planer also have 4-inch ports, so again, the adapters are going to be used for certain tools depending on the size of their ports. Looks like we have another 2.5 to 4-inch, so it looks like it comes with 2 4-inch adapters and 2 2.5-inch adapters, 2 4-inch adapters. If that makes any sense. You also have some clamps here, just like we had installed on this portion itself. You have some 2.5-inch and 4-inch clamps, it looks like. So the first step that we're going to take is installing the handle to the hose. That's the first thing that we need to do. So you want to make sure that you put one of the clamps around the hose itself before you install the handle. And there's only one side of the handle that'll fit into the hose. Once you have that installed over the handle is when you're going to lift up your clamp. We're going to get this thing installed over the handle, right between the seams of the hose. And again, this thing doesn't need to be over torqued, it just needs to be tightened by hand. Just enough to make sure that it stays on. That looks like a secure connection now. Alright, so next we have the Dust Right hose and handle docking port kit. So this was also purchased separately, and it comes with the ability, gotta make sure I keep everything together, comes with the ability to hook your hose to the wall so it's not just hanging like this in your shop. Alright, and as far as the hose hookup goes, this is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it does come with instructions, but it's really not that hard to figure out. You just want to make sure that you put it into place where the hose is going to be comfortable for you to put away every single day. You don't want it too high because you won't be able to reach it, and you don't want it too low because that will kind of defeat the purpose of actually using this. So you want it somewhat where you know that you can hook this up and you will be comfortable pulling it out and putting it back in. So right about there for me. Right over the 24/16. We'll grab ourselves a screw here. This thing does not need to be lined up whatsoever. And on top of that, you want to make sure that you have it in an area to where if you are going to install a permanent line in the future, that it's not going to be in the way of this hookup here. That did not sound good with us, that bit. Alright, so that's secure on there. Again, benefits of having OSB wall as opposed to drywall. Alright, so this looks like a good spot for it. Like I said, I'm not even making any measurements or markings. I'm just going to go ahead and install this. You're basically going to get installed just so that it's a comfortable fit. Just like that. Alright, and it comes with 2 straps, keep that in mind, so you will have to install another one. You want one high and one low. Alright, so now as you can see, I have those installed onto the Dust Right to make this thing a little bit better. We have the 21-foot hose that extends at least more than halfway through the shop. And then we have the connection here against the wall to be able to secure the hose when you're not using it. Now it's time to hook up the power and see how this thing sounds. Once I get this hooked up here, we're going to be able to tidy up that cord with some tie wraps. All right, we went ahead and plugged in the dust collector. I have yet to turn this on. So we're gonna go ahead and see how this works. Now, what I'm understanding is that when we turn this dust collector on and you have the hose hooked up to the wall with the kit that I had to purchase separately, it will suction all the hose in and create a little smaller hose with a nice cleanup when you're done using it. So we're gonna go ahead and get the remote out now. Again, I haven't turned this on yet, so not quite sure what to expect. So it looks like there's an on and off button, and that's all you get. You have a clip on the back side, and I don't even know if it comes with batteries. So it does not come with any batteries. That's one thing that we need to look into. All right, so that is one downfall. It does not come with batteries, so it looks like it needs one of the D batteries, is my understanding. All right, guys, so the remote control does not come with a battery at all, and there is no battery in the package itself. So that is kind of a downfall from Rockler itself. It's not the worst thing in the world. You can always purchase a battery. They're definitely not AA's. They're the square batteries. I believe they're the size D. But just keep that in mind that if you want to utilize this tool right away with the remote control, make sure you purchase yourself a battery before, because I don't have one right now. I need to go to the store and buy one. It's kind of a downfall for that because I wanted to show how this thing works. But we will, or at least with the remote control, we're gonna have to turn it on from the top portion itself, just to get this thing running. But just keep that in mind that if you are planning on using this the day you buy it, you need a battery. All right, like I said, we don't have the remote to be able to use this, so we're gonna have to use the ladder to get up there just to turn this on for now. Once I get the battery, I'll include that in the video with the remote control to make sure that everything works. All right, I'm gonna have to bring the camera in up here so that you guys can actually see what it looks like from up top. You have a couple different buttons up here. So you have a reset button, you have your power button, and then you also have this button itself. So when we're using the dust collector with the remote, my guess is you're not gonna have to use any of these buttons up here, and you'll just run it off the remote itself. However, for right now, we need to flip this up, and then we need to push this button to activate it. All right, so let's give it a go and see what happens. All right, I'm gonna run this one more time with the camera down on that angle so that you can actually see how this thing works. It's really not that loud at all. So if I was going to compare noises in regards to this dust collector and some other appliance that you may have, probably a hair blower, the things that girls use for drying their hair, a blow dryer. I would definitely compare it to maybe something like that. All right, the two tools that actually produce the most chips are going to be the planer and the joiner. That's in my opinion. You may have different tools in your shop that produce more chips, but within my shop, those are the two tools that do so. So we're going to go ahead and try out the joiner and the planer and see how this dust collector actually works. Nice snug fit on that, so seems like it's going to do pretty well with the fit. All right, so let's go ahead and try out the joiner and see how it works with the dust collection itself. This is our first try with this dust collector. Go ahead and lock these into place. All right, so let's go ahead and hook up. We're gonna use a 2x6 just to give it a go. We're gonna run the dust collector to the port. I really wish that I had a remote at this time, but unfortunately I do not. So it just hooks in just like that. I don't know what this twirling thing is for yet, but I guess we'll figure that out. Okay, you have an opening. So I guess you have an opening here, which you want to make sure that that's actually closed when using the dust collector. Should be as simple as that. Turn it to give it a little give right here with the hose. Alright, let's give it a shot. So I'm going to turn the dust collector on. We're going to run this board down in the 2x6 and we're going to see what we get out of it. Alright, so I turned the camera around so you can see the angle of the joiner and the dust collector working at the same time. Again, we're going to use a 2x6 and I'm only going to take about 1/8 of an inch off the 2x6 with the joiner. Alright. It shouldn't be hard to do this back and forth with a ladder, but unfortunately, again, we don't have the remote working right now. So it's really not that loud, the dust collector. You can definitely hear it, but you can still talk at the same time. So we'll go ahead and run this 2x6 here and see what happens. Take you over to the dust collector so you can see what's going on in there. All right. Now that we turn the dust collector off, let's go see what we have over at the joiner. And before we go to the joiner, you can see all the chips just settling right in that bag. This, guys, right here is a great dust collector for the chips. I don't really see anything by the joiner itself, so that shows that it's working pretty well. Again, this bag right now is just because of the fact that it's filling up right here, just based on the fact that we don't have the dust deputy right now. But as soon as we get the dust deputy set up, all the chips and sawdust should go into the bucket before it even reaches that bag. If anything, we'll get a couple particles in that bag. But as you can see here, definitely have a clean shot. No dust, no chips, nothing at all throughout the joiner. Now this joiner is pretty dusty from being used, and I try to clean it up as much as I can before we shot this video. But as you can see here, it's definitely very, very clean. All right, next step, let's go ahead and try the planer. All right, so if you happen to have the same planer that I have right here, the DeWalt planer, what you have is actually not a 4-inch port, and it's going to be a 2.5, and you need to make sure that you use the adapter, the 2.5-inch adapter to the 4-inch, to be able to make this thing work. All right, so we're going to go ahead and run the same board. Let me get this thing up and out of the way here. Just fix that up later. So we're going to go ahead and run the same board that we ran on the joiner, and we're going to run it with the planer. So hopefully this thing works like it needs to. I don't want to tighten it too much, just in case that thing gets stuck in there. It has some weight to it, so it is pulling this down a little bit, but not enough to actually mess with the back port itself. So let's go ahead and raise this up some. Figure out what needs to fit in there. Let's get this measured out for the 2x6. All right. So I'm gonna give it a go. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the dust collector and we'll see what it sounds like. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn this off. It sounds like the machine's still running, but it's not. It's actually the dust collector that's running through it. But as you can see, the 21-foot hose reaches pretty far. Let's see the results that we have. So, all right, so that looks like that's from the joiner itself and from the planer. So that's all the sawdust that got collected. All right, guys, so where we're at right now, to sum it up, this dust collector is amazing. I've never had one this big before, so I can't really compare it from this to another one. So if you guys have any opinions or comments, whatever the case is, leave them down below, because that's what this channel is all about, is learning from other people and from me to figure out what's going to best be suitable for your shop. So again, I have no complaints with this dust collector at all. There is not one chip left on the ground from jointing or from the actual planing itself. And those two machines right there create the most chips from wood than any other tool that I have. The next one in line would either be the miter saw or the router table. But if it's going to work on these two tools themselves, I know for a fact that it's going to work on these. So I have no complaints at all in regards to the Dust Right 1.5 horsepower dust collector. So like I said, that's it for this portion so far. As you can see, it does work, and it works very well. The next time we come into this, which will be another day, is I need to go to the store and get a battery for the remote control to make sure that this thing is working completely. And on top of that, we're going to install the Dust Deputy. So it will be within this video still. It's just not going to be today. So the next time around, we're going to install the Dust Deputy, get that battery for the remote, and see how that functions with this system itself. Alright guys, we are back on a different day now. The Oneida Dust Deputy finally came in. I purchased another 4-inch hose. You can get the same thing from Rockler or from Amazon. Whatever you're using, just make sure that it's 4 inches, it'll hook up from the Dust Deputy to the Dust Right. So just to give you guys an example of what's going to happen here. The hose that we already have hooked up to right here is no longer going to be hooked up to that. This one's going to take its place. Once we have this hooked up to this port itself, the bottom portion of this hose is going to hook into the Dust Deputy on the very top, and on the side of the Dust Deputy there's another port that comes out, and that's where this hose is going to hook up to. So now we're going to have an even longer reach with this hose, because the Dust Deputy is going to be somewhere around this area rather than having the hose hook up right here. So it's only going to give us about 2 or 3 more feet. But 2 or 3 more feet can make a difference in your shop. Okay, so getting to this, I purchased this Super Dust Deputy from Woodcraft rather than Amazon. As explained before, Amazon was out of stock. So Woodcraft did have them in stock. It took about a week to come in, but it was well worth the wait. Alright, this is my first time ever using a canister like this. I was having issues unlatching this at first, and I don't know if it was just a defect of mine. But this portion right here needs to come down before this one can get unlatched. I had to use a flathead just to be able to pop that thing down. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that hard. But I don't know if it's because it's providing a very secure seal, or if you actually need to use a flathead in order to get that down. Once you have your gasket around the latch bracket, we're going to go ahead and install the dust deputy on top. It sits freely right here, of my understanding. It doesn't fit within the bin itself. The latch is what's actually going to hold it in place. We'll go ahead and throw this one up there, lock it in. And I'm pretty sure that is it, except for the top port itself. That top port just has to get pressed into there. And I think it's all ready to go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to remove the blue hose that was originally connected to the dust right, and we are going to move it to this port. We have another hose that we're going to connect where this one is at right now, and we're going to move it to the top. That way, whatever's sucking through this area is actually coming through here, and all of the dust should fall into this canister. Loosen this just enough to get that off. That one could remain there. Like I said, it's going to go here around this dust deputy port. We're going to go ahead and tighten the clamp once you have this secured over the port. Okay. Now for the second portion, like I said, we're going to use another hose that's going to connect from this port up to the place where the blue one used to be. All right, for this, we're going to need 2 clamps of 4 inches, one to connect to this and one to connect to that one up there. You want to make sure that this has a nice good seal over it because you will not be removing this one. All right, now that we have that one installed, we're going to go ahead and hook up this one to the port up on top. And again, just like we did before with the blue hose, it's the same exact process. All right, we have it all hooked up now. Let's go ahead and use the remote control. Let's go ahead and install that battery. So again, I went ahead and purchased a 9-volt battery because there was not one within the system itself, the packaging. So we purchased a 9-volt and we're going to install it in the remote control and see how this thing works. All right, I just need to make sure that the switch is on. It's like a safety switch you have up on top, the red and yellow one that I showed you before, and that thing is on. So the remote control should turn it on from here. Let's unlatch this, take this one off, unlatch this one. We have a free hose here. Let's give it a shot, see what happens. Okay, so the remote control does work, as you can see with that turning on. Now we do have some chips and sawdust in here from the last video, the last portion of the video. So it's not going to be fair to the system to see whether or not the Cyclone's working unless we empty that bag out, so that's what I'm going to do now. And it's not going to be perfectly empty, but because there's dust in there, but I'm going to get all the major chips out, the major sawdust, shake it out, and come back with a cleaner bag. All right, so I went ahead and emptied out the bag. Like I said, it's not going to be 100% like it was out of the package based on the fact that it's already been used, but you're going to see the difference with how much chips and sawdust are actually within this bag. We're going to give it a shot on the joiner and the planer and see how much is actually left within the Cyclone and left within the bag. So let's go ahead and turn it on so you can have an idea. You can see through the clear portion of the bag. All right, as you can see, there were very little chips within there. So you remember from the last time how we ran the joiner and the planer, there was a lot of chips that went into that bag, basically everything. So now that we have the Cyclone hooked up, we're gonna see how much actually lands within the Cyclone and how much lands within the bag. All right, let's hook up the hose to it. All right, now that we have a remote, we can go ahead and turn it on from wherever we're at. So we're gonna turn the dust collector on. Let's go ahead and take this off. Now that we have that jointed, we're going to go ahead and use the planer. So we're going to go ahead and run the planer, run this board through the planer, and let's lock this in place. All right, let's go ahead and get the hose and hook this up. And let's run it. figure out how we're gonna strap this up in a bit, because I think I'm gonna have to move these straps right here, just based on the fact that we have just installed this, and it's gonna be in that way. All right, with this system, same exact process. Like I said, there was no dust or anything like that around the planer or the joiner that was left behind. If anything, it was just small particles, but nothing major as it would be without any kind of dust collection. But as you can see in here, there is, and I can't even tell you, to be honest with you, if that is the original dust from when we first did the testing without the Super Dust Deputy itself. But there is definitely nothing big within this bag, at least not from a joiner or planer without any sort of dual system. So now it's time to open this up and see what is actually within there. All right, so we have to fix all this up, and I definitely will before we close this video out. But just to get an idea of what is in this bag, or just to get an idea of what's in this canister, we're gonna go ahead and remove this. And you can see at least 99% of the chips are within this canister itself now. That is exactly what we want. We want the majority of the sawdust and chips to go into this canister rather than the bag, because you got to remember that this saves your filter on your dust collector itself. It saves the amount of sawdust filtering through the system and into the bag. This is where you want your primary to go. After that, you have the small particles going into your dust collector, fine. It's going to give a longer existence to the actual dust collector. But like I said, this is where you want all your chips. Now, this can is not the biggest can in the world. It does come with the system. In the future, we may end up designing something so that we have a bigger canister. That way we're not emptying it out so much. I'm not a big fan of this size. It just happened to come with the Dust Deputy itself. So, like I said, we're giving it a shot right now, but we will definitely rearrange this and give ourselves a much bigger canister in the future. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. These two brackets here came in the package to include the mount for the hose. I don't think I need two. I'm gonna use one for just the blue and another one for this white one here, kind of to hold it up in a position. And then I'll be able to move this mount to about this area. That way the Dust Deputy doesn't seem so crammed in one area. And let's see how that works out. I think it's gonna look a lot better. All right, so all in all, I think this came out a little bit better. I like using this a lot more than having to kind of just waste this band against this hose portion just to hold this tight. There's really no need for it. This one definitely is required, kind of pulls it in, and it holds it in one spot. But what I did, obviously, is I moved the second bracket that was originally down here, up here to hold this hose together and make it a little bit of a cleaner look. So far I'm very happy with the Dust Right dust collector, the Oneida Super Dust Deputy, and all the attachments. The only issue that I had with any of this process was the latch itself. But once we got that fixed, it works really well now. Alright guys, to sum this up, I love this dust collector. The 1250 CFM 1.5 horsepower Dust Right. Now I'm not trying to sell this to you whatsoever, but this dust collector works. It has given me no issues. The sound of it, it's not loud whatsoever. Like I said, it sounds like a blow dryer. See, I got it right this time. Sounds like a blow dryer. That's what I can describe it as. Everything works with this system. I have no issues with the Dust Deputy. The only issue that I had initially was the latch on the lid. But since we figured that out, we were able to pop that off, loosen it up a little bit, and latch it back on. It slides up and down nicely now. And if you want to know the dimensions of the actual canister itself, we're looking at about 19.5 inches from the floor to the top of the lid, I would say it's about 16 inches. And from the floor to the top of the Dust Deputy, right around 41 inches. So, and that's the top of the port that was connected in here. So would I recommend this to you guys? 100%. 100%. I don't see myself ever buying something different than this. It's a wall mount, it's off the floor. The only thing that is on the floor is this canister itself. And let's be honest, this canister is not the biggest canister in the world. We are going to eventually upgrade to a bigger canister. I can't see myself actually changing this out every hour to 2 hours, depending on how many chips I'm actually producing out for the joiner or the planer. For the smaller tools, such as the miter saw and the router table, those things right there, I can see it not building up so high, but the chips from the planer and the joiner are definitely going to build up in this canister. So this is something that is a good starter set, but it's definitely nothing that we're going to keep for the lifetime of our workshop. So if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't done so. We have a lot to do with this shop. This is the bare bones beginning of this shop. This shop was built within the last month, and the walls just got put up a couple weeks ago. So, like I said, we are in the beginning stages of this shop. As you can see, we're using a miter saw stand. This is pretty sad right here. We haven't even gotten to the point to making the miter saw station yet. So those kind of videos are going to be coming up. We're going to show you ideas of what we do, and maybe you can utilize that within your shop. If you guys like this video, push that like button, please. It helps us out tremendously. Subscribe if you haven't done so. We have a lot coming up. We'll see you guys next time.